and my name is Ellen Kokenda, and I'm going to convene the staff hearing officer meeting for April 19th, 2023. First, we have preliminary matters, any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of X agenda items. I have none. Any announcements and appeals? My one announcement is that today the Land Development Team Oversight Subcommittee meeting, committee is meeting to review some of our land development team process improvements, and we'll be giving a general update. And then no appeals for show. And let's see, I'm now moving on to public comment. I'm going to open up public comment for items not on today's agenda. So if anybody in the audience wishes to speak on items not on today's agenda, I do want to acknowledge that I received written correspondence from Don Roberts and Lisa Messing on another project that's going to be probably a future project here. So I just want to acknowledge those for the record. But it looks like no one else wishes to speak, so I'm going to close general public comment and move on to the first item, which is 259 Santa Catalina. This is a 5,512 square foot site. It's developed with an 805 square foot single unit residence and an attached 278 square foot single car garage. The proposed project involves a 378 square foot addition to the rear, which is Project South, and a new entry landing and front gabled entry roof to the facade, which is Project North. The discretionary applications under the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer required for this project are a setback modification to allow the proposed entry roof to encroach into the front setback, and to be determined that the project is categorically exempt from further environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines Section 15301, existing facilities. I have Ms. Burkhart here as the assigned case planner. If you wish to give your presentation, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Ms. Kokenda. This is a pretty straightforward ask. Sure.
Ms. Gu, do you mind switching over?
This is a pretty straightforward ask. It's a small part of a larger project. It's a front setback modification request just to facilitate construction of a new entry roof. This site was developed in 1951, which was before our current code was in place. Current code was adopted in the 70s. So the setback now is 20 feet, while this existing residence is sited 22 feet from the setback, which leaves only 2 feet for, protection on that front entry. So the applicant is proposing to redo that as part of this larger project. Let's see. I don't know. Let's see. Here's an image of that entryway now. There's a flat roof just protecting the entryway. It does encroach currently into the setback by 1.5 feet approximately. So the proposed entry roof would encroach 3 feet into the setback, which staff finds to be an appropriate improvement. It would improve the definition of that front entry and the street's curb appeal, so to speak, as well as a nice little improvement for the neighborhood as well. Let me see if I can find the elevation showing that element. So here's the roof. It's a front gable, just a little more structure, a little more, doesn't blend into that fascia line like what's currently there does. So staff finds this to be an appropriate improvement and the modification necessary just due to the siting of the residence and due to the code changes. And the project has received a coastal exemption, and staff has determined it exempt from CEQA, as you stated. I think that is really all I need to say. I can show you Here's kind of from the side elevation how it would project. This is the setback line. So just 3 feet into the setback. And as I said, the current situation is encroaching 1.5 feet. And the alternative is just not to do this and leave what's there as is. And I think that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Burkhardt. I'd like to invite the applicant to come up, and if you could please state your name for the record. And
My name's Tom Oxner, project architect. I really have nothing further to add. We appreciate how quickly the mod was allowed to move forward, and just a simple mod like this makes a big difference on the front of the house. So very much appreciated it. And Ms. Burkhardt, thank you for the time. Good presentation. Thank you.
all right, thank you. Now I'd like to open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or anyone attending via Zoom who'd like to speak on this item? I don't see anyone interested in the audience. Ms. Gu, do we have anyone who wishes to speak via Zoom?
At this time, I do not see any raised hands for public comment. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and just let you know that I read the staff report. I did a site visit. This is, honestly, this is a really simple, straightforward project. I don't need to spend too much time on it. It's a lovely element. I think it'll make this house much more charming. It'll be more appropriate. It'll be nicer for the homeowner to walk into their home. It'll look better from the street. Really, the encroachment into the front setback is so minor, and again, for an improvement that benefits all. Very much appreciate the effort to kind of make it have a little bit more curb appeal from the owner's standpoint, and even proposing this to begin with, because I know it's kind of adds process to it, which is a little bit unfortunate. But yes, I can just go ahead and say that I can make the findings for the front setback modification, and that it's consistent with the general purposes of the zoning ordinance and residential uses, and that really this element is really enhancing the current residence as proposed, and it's necessary to secure that appropriate improvement on this lot and for the neighborhood. So, and then I can also, of course, make the finding that this project is, I can uphold staff's determination that this project is categorically exempt for further environmental review as written in the staff report. And I don't have any other comments. I just want to let you know that, of course, my decision can be appealed within 10 calendar days, or any member of the Planning Commission could pull this item if they see fit. But no, thank you, and I wish your client well and next steps. Thanks. All right. Moving on to 3508 Madrona Drive. This is a new item. This is a 9,100 square foot property. It's developed with a 1,002 square foot, one-story single-family residence, a 120 square foot shed, and a 357 square foot attached garage. The proposed project consists of a 798 square foot addition and a 900 square foot second-story accessory dwelling unit with a 438 square foot garage. The proposed project is 88% of the maximum allowed FAR, and the discretionary applications under the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer today for this project are a floor area modification required to allow new accessory dwelling unit to exceed 50% of the floor area of the existing residence, and then determine that the project is categorically exempt from further environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines, Section 15301, existing facilities. And we have Ms. Broadison here as the assigned case planner to present the project, and whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Here to present, as you stated, 3508 Madrona. So it's a 9,100 square foot lot, and it's developed within a 1,000 square foot one-story residence and 120 square foot shed and a 357 square foot garage. And the project is proposing to do a 798 square foot addition and a 900 square foot second story accessory dwelling unit above a new 438 square foot garage. The project requires a modification because the city's ADU ordinance only allows the ADU to be 50% of the existing floor area. So because the existing house is 1,000 square feet, the ADU exceeds 50% of that. However, it didn't make sense to have the applicant remodel the house, do an addition, build a second-story addition, and then come back later to convert it to an accessory dwelling unit and make them do this two-step process. So in order to do that, that required design review by the Single Family Design Board because it is not exactly totally above the garage and it exceeds the height of the existing house. The Design Review Board reviewed the project and found the mass, bulk, and scale appropriate as the site is in a neighborhood with a mix of 1- and 2-story neighborhood residences.
Ms. Brodesson, can you speak closer to the microphone? I think City TV is having a hard time picking up your sound.
Sure, thank you. So yeah, at the first meeting, the applicant was requested to revise the project in order to address neighbors' privacy concerns. So they did raise the sill heights of the windows, and they also flipped the floor plan entirely so that most of the actual living spaces face the west side of the residence instead of peering out over onto the east side of the residence. And they also requested that the entry landing have a screen wall to add to the neighbor's privacy. So when the project returned on February 6th, the board found that the floor area ratio was acceptable and supported the project and the revised windows and floor plans. So the project will return to the Single Family Design Board subsequent to today. Also, as you stated, the project was found exempt from further review under Section 15301, which allows for additions to existing facilities. So staff recommends that the staff hearing officer approve the floor area mod and make the CEQA finding as outlined in the staff report. There was a letter of concern from the adjacent neighbor, and that was provided to you for your review prior to the meeting. And that concludes staff's comments, and we do have the applicant and the owner here to represent the project.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Brodesson. I'd like to invite the applicant and homeowner to come on up. And if you wouldn't mind stating your names for the record and speak into the microphone so that our city TV can pick up the sound.
Sure. My name is Jerry Roche. I'm the architect for the client, Conrad Metzenberg, sitting to my right. Ms. Brodesson did a fantastic job presenting, so I don't have a lot to add other than that well, just to reiterate the fact that this would be allowable in the two-step process, except it would just be a major burden to the client to have to do that financially and to do that with the process. So this streamlines the process and gives them the ADU and the added housing element that would assist in the city's problems too.
Okay, thank you so much. And now I'm going to open up public comment. If anyone wishes to speak in this audience, I will. In the meantime, I can say that I received, prior to this hearing, it was distributed, I received public comment from Ross and Ruth Reverdy, which I have read, and who are the owners of 3500 Madrona Drive. But if no one wishes to speak, or do you want, okay.
I just wanted to say that.
Here, I'm sorry, do you mind using the microphone? And just, again, it's for City TV to record, not as much.
No, I just wanted to say that I already wrote the letter, and I'm sure that everything I got to say at this point was written on that one letter, so please take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. So I can share that I did go out on site, and I've read the staff report, and I'm familiar with the hearings from the Single Family Design Board, and at least kind of the process. I'm kind of curious just what your original kind of considerations were for the neighbor when you first designed this project, and just the stairwell, and if you could just walk me through that.
Switch the floor plans to if you need to.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Say again, Gillian.
Slide one down if you want to show the floor plans. It's up to you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, do we have the original?
No, we just have the.
We just have the revised plan? Okay. So the let me, I guess, go to the floor plan, the first floor plan here. We'll slide this over. I think I can zoom out maybe, oh, other way. So the existing house, there's a demarcation line right through here where we were trying to maintain the residents of the existing house so they could live in the house while the construction was going on. So the existing garage was set back pretty far. So this became the location where we needed to do the addition. And it's a growing family. They've got 2 young kids. They needed the extra space. So how we accommodated the neighbor, I guess primarily was in the revision process. We completely flipped the design so it focused towards the west rather than towards the east. And that was a pretty major effort. You know, there's certain things that we just couldn't do. We can't relocate the stair over to this other side of the house. We can't, put it in the front of the house because then the AD was in front of the main house. So we were kind of tied to this corner for the addition. But we did go through a pretty significant effort to remodel the design for the client, for the adjacent neighbor.
Thank you. So just a couple of points, because generally our accessory dwelling unit ordinance was drafted to, again, not exceed the 50%, but I agree with staff's assessment in this scenario because because ultimately you're going to build this size house regardless, and so to avoid the 2-step process, this is a rational thing to do. I just want to kind of comment that if this were different, if, I just want to clarify my thinking behind this and why I can support staff's considerations here is because if it were trying to do something else, then I think I'd have to look at it a little bit. I might have different considerations, but again, just to avoid this 2-step process, you would eventually achieve to get that, to be able to up that 50% square footage once that you had that. So I think that's perfectly acceptable. I just want to acknowledge for Mr. Reverdy, in your comments that a couple of things that came up in terms of the noise. So our municipal code addresses noise specifically for different mechanical equipment. So this project has to comply with the 53 dBA with the 2 pieces of the 2 compressors. So that's not something, so I just want to identify that when this project submits for their building permit application, our zoning staff will be reviewing to make sure that that mechanical equipment, the 2 combined, does not exceed that level of noise. And if the applicant can't prove that and show how that will comply in that location, then they will have to move it until it does comply. So we have our code outlines that. So I just want to say that will be addressed at the building permit stage, and our staff will verify that. A couple other things I did notice that, in terms of the location of just the floor plan in general, I really appreciate kind of the modification, the kind of how it evolved over time to kind of avoid privacy impacts with that front balcony. And you've tried to do as much as possible with that stairwell. The only other consideration, again, all of our, with that, I understand that SFDB required the poles. Can we pull up the elevation?
Sure.
Of the stairs, the privacy slats. I don't know what we're calling those.
Yeah, it's like a louvered screen.
Yeah. So I feel like that's, again, we're trying to minimize the amount of looking over into somebody's yards, and I think that's a sufficient solution for that. The only other consideration that I can want to consider is just lighting, because anytime you have a door, you're going to have a light. And so even though things are, need to be night sky compliant, I will be adding a condition that any lighting has to be shielded so it doesn't, there's no light trespass into the neighbor. So it's just having a cover over it so it's not a bulb, if that
That'd be
makes sense.
second floor lighting?
A second floor, just where that, because again, for the building code will require that.
Okay.
But I just wanted to kind of say that, again, this is a perfectly, it's a unique project. I think it's great that this is a way to use your lot to achieve getting an accessory dwelling unit and being able to make a necessary improvement for your home and your family. So I can go ahead and approve the floor area modification, and that it's consistent with the general purposes of the zoning ordinance regarding residential uses. And this modification is going to be, it does secure an appropriate improvement on the lot, because as we mentioned, it would be really unfortunate and just not make any sense from a construction standpoint why you would first do the, part one and then come in with an accessory dwelling unit and have to do a two-part planning and building process, which would be unfortunate. So I agree wholeheartedly with staff's findings, and I can also make the finding that this project is categorically exempt from further CEQA review under 15301. I will add the condition that lighting for that second story entry will need to be shielded. And that's just, again, to prevent light trespass. And my decision can be appealed within 10 calendar days, or any city planning commissioner can pull my decision if they have any issues with that. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this concludes the staff hearing officer meeting for today, and I will go ahead and adjourn.